Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted to be joined by Danny, Greg, and Elliot. We are here for the big fight breakdown ahead of the mega fight happening on July 29th in Las Vegas between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford for the undisputed welterweight championship of the world. Gents, it's been a long time coming. We could have done this video 2-3 years ago, maybe a lot longer than that, but we're here. It's finally happening. Big fight, 2 pound for pound stars, and really looking forward to breaking it down with all three of you, getting some predictions across, and seeing what each other think of this fight. First question I've got for you: both fighters now in the kind of their early to mid 30s. Both fighters have been around a long time, achieved a lot. Is this fight happening too late? Greg, I'm going to go to you first. Is this another? I don't want to say Amir Khan, Kell Brooks situation, but can you relate it to that? Is this fight happening a little bit too late for your liking?
Yeah, thanks, Elliot. I think we could say that it's happening too late, but the guys hold all the gold at 147, so it would be very, very opinionated to say that it's definitely happening too late. Would I have liked to have seen it 2-3 years ago? Yeah, probably would have preferred to see it then, but let's be honest, the guys hold everything at 147, so it's still a good time to make the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm interested to see what obviously Danny and Elliot think if they agree with you or not. Just so everyone knows, Terence Crawford will be nearly 36 years old by the time this fight's happening. Errol Spence has obviously kind of not the most active couple of years for a couple of different reasons. I think he's 33 years old as well now. But yeah, we'll see what the other guys think as well. Danny, what do you think? Is this fight happening too late? What's your opinion?
I would agree pretty much with everything that Greg said there. I think like the absolute optimal time for this fight probably would have been a couple of years ago, but how often does that really happen? Like, I think they're still 100% the top two welterweights in the world. Whether each of them's at their peaks, maybe something we'll come on to, but I think like we're nowhere near entering sort of Brook Khan or Mayweather Pacquiao territory. They're still like both like top 10, probably top 5 pound for pound fighters. So I think as Greg sort of hinted at, you'd be really sort of nitpicking if you're saying, oh, it's too late, I'm not interested to look past it. Like we're nowhere near that sort of territory. So yeah, I think if maybe it went beyond this year, you're starting getting into like we've missed the boat a wee bit territory, but I think both still look to be close to, if not maybe quite at their prime. So yeah, I'm happy enough.
Yeah, I suppose it's a tricky question to ask as well, because we might not know. It's hard to answer until the fight starts. The fight might start and then you realize one fighter maybe isn't the fighter they were. There is a difference in levels there. One fighter isn't maybe as fresh as they were. So we'll see what happens on July 29th. Saving the best till last. Elliot, Greg, your thoughts. Is this fight happening too late?
No, I agree with the two hardcores there. I'd have to say that. Look, I mean, I can't believe you mentioned Khan and Brook in the same sentence. Frankly, I mean, there's buses that are late, and then there's buses you wish you hadn't have got on, and that was frankly one I'd rather have just seen. I'd wave that fucker on. But like you say, these guys obviously, both champions. I think for me, it's like when I look at Crawford, we can talk about resumes, obviously, but I think Crawford's obviously some of the recent fights he's had as well. I think haven't been that challenging for him. Like against big names, granted, but not like that exacting. But at the same time, Spence for me is the one where you think like the car accident, whatever. So maybe like, I would have liked to have seen it pre that, but like I'm not going to moan about it. Like, I'm still. This is still one of the fights obviously you want to see, and it's still marinated. Not marinated, bit overcooked, granted, but it's not like Fury Joshua. It's still got relevance for me.
Yeah, and I think I do think that July 29th it will be one of those nights where those of us who are this side of the pond in the UK will be staying up till 4, 5, 6 in the morning to watch this fight. It's going to be one of those nights. I think it happened with Fury Wilder 1 a few years ago. There's another couple of examples here and there, but this is going to be one of those nights where so many people from over here are staying up to watch that fight, and saying that it means that it's not happening too late. People are still very much interested in this fight, and people are one person could say Terence Crawford's going to win, another person could say Errol Spence is going to win. There's a real mixture of opinions on this fight, which there should be for a fight this size. Moving on, gents. I do want to ask you, if I were to ask you kind of who has the more impressive resume, I do want to kind of get an answer on that. Errol Spence's current record is I think it's 33-0. Sorry, 28-0, my mistake. Terence Crawford's current record is 39-0, so a bit of a difference in the amount of fights they've had there. Terence Crawford is a bit older, has been around a bit longer. Errol Spence, there's kind of some British interest there. He's kind of beaten Kell Brook in Sheffield back in 2017. That was when he first won his world title. To be fair to him, he's on a bit of a roll in recent years. Was the first man to beat Mikey Garcia, beat Sean Porter, beat Danny Garcia in his first fight back from one of his car accidents. So he's got an impressive resume of names. Terence Crawford, obviously we know, is a 3-weight world champion, has also beaten Kell Brook, has beaten Sean Porter, beaten other names as well, such as Julius Ndongo, Jeff Horn as well, and yeah, can't forget about Ricky Burns. Danny, going to go to you first. Who was the better resume, Sean Porter or Errol Spence?
Sean Porter or Errol Spence?
Sorry, Errol Spence or Terence Crawford.
Too busy making fun of me with Ricky Burns.
Ricky Burns got a fight coming up. We'll promote that as well.
Absolutely.
I might catch a bit of flack for saying this, because I think from what I've seen and other videos breaking down, the consensus seems to be that Spence has the better resume, but I think overall Crawford probably edges it. You factor in, he beat like the absolute best version of Victor Postol. Gamboa had never lost when he beat him. You mentioned Ricky Burns and Dongo, Jeff Horn, and then he's beaten a lot of the same names Spence has beat at welterweight, albeit maybe not like the version of Kell Brook that Crawford beats, not the same as Spence beat. Like, let's have it right. But I think Spence has definitely got the better wins at 147, but overall, and then Kavaliauskas as well for Crawford, I don't think he'd ever been beat when he fought him. So I think overall, I would maybe just give Crawford the edge if you factor in what he done at lightweight and super lightweight. And then, as I say, Spence has probably got he's cleaned out 147 apart from Crawford, really, if we're having it right. So it is close, but overall, Crawford at 147, Spence.
Yeah, I think this is a debate that I think we could spend the rest of the call just talking about this question, which we're not going to do. But so I'm going to go straight to Elliot. Elliot, do you agree with Danny? Do you think Terence Crawford's got the better resume?
If in doubt, they say agree with Danny. And I'm not looking over at his exam paper here and looking to copy him. I actually, before you asked him, I actually thought essentially that I was going to thinking that you almost like split the resumes in two. Like, I look at Crawford has obviously got the endurance, and like obviously the guys Danny mentioned, Gamboa, you mentioned Burns, obviously Post, all those names. It's almost like he's got at that point of his career some great wins. Recently, Errol Spence's CV is better for me, so it's like it's hard to really judge it. I mean, I always sit on the fence, but you can make an argument either way. I'd probably say overall Crawford probably has, but equally over the last sort of say 5-6 years, no, he hasn't. So that's where it is for me. Like the version, obviously, the version of sort of Amir Khan that Crawford fought, the very, even like to say the Sean Porter version, still a good version, but not the same. So stuff like that, I kind of think, yeah, recently Spence, but overall, I could equally have an argument for Crawford as well.
Okay, so I'm going to push you for an actual answer.
I'll agree with Danny. Yes, I'll agree with Danny. Yeah.
I agree with Danny again. Greg, what are your thoughts? Do you agree that Terence Crawford has a better resume than Errol Spence?
You know, see if you read Twitter and you read most of the boxing world, they would think that the two boys are mad for having that opinion. But you know what? I agree with them. I think there's a lot of things that you need to look into. How many world titles Terence Crawford has won at how many different weights? The fighters that he's fought, yes, Spence does seem to have a little bit of a more solid resume at 147, but I make points for Terence Crawford based on nobody wants to fight him because there's not enough money in it. I don't know if you guys have seen recent interviews with promoters that have said, which is wild, that they won't go all out and sign Terence Crawford because he doesn't bring in the money that other fighters do. So that's not Terence Crawford's fault that some guys won't fight him, because I truly believe Terence Crawford wants and has always wanted all the smoke. I think he wants it all. To answer your question, before I ramble on, because I'm going to go down a different road, I think when you look at the world titles and the amount of different weights and the way that he's dealt with some fighters, I think it's just got to be Terence Crawford for me. But if you go onto the internet, people will think we're mad for saying that.
Yeah, no, it's look, I think to be fair to all of you, look, it's not an easy question to answer. I think Terence Crawford, look, I think he can't deny he's got more achievements than Errol Spence. He's obviously had more fights to do it in as well. But no, look, it's a really tricky one, and maybe it's one of those questions that you maybe want to revisit when both fighters have retired and everything's said and done. Greg, going to go back to you on this one. Pound for pound lists. Some people love them, some people hate them. Who, again, it kind of goes back to, it's a similar question to who's got the better resume, but is Terence Crawford higher in your pound for pound list than Errol Spence's?
No, it's a good question, Elliot. It is similar, but it's very different at the same time, because it's what you like in a pound for pound list. A pound for pound list for me is based on the amount of world titles guys have won in different weights and fighters that they've fought in their record. For me, that means that Terence Crawford's got to be higher. So where some of these guys, with the greatest respect, will have Tyson Fury at like number 2 and things, I think that's wild how you can have him above guys like Naoya Inoue, Terence Crawford, etc. So for me, based on achievements, I think you've got to have Terence Crawford just above Errol Spence.
Good stuff. Danny, would you agree with Greg there? Is Terence Crawford above Errol Spence in your pound for pound list?
100%. I don't see how my sort of understanding of pound for pound is pretty similar to Greg's. Like, doing it at different weights goes a long way, and like there's no real comparison there. Crawford obviously undisputed at 140, won world titles, 135, and then obviously world champion up at welterweight as well. We're gonna catch some flack for this, boys. If the PBC fanboys get wind of this video, we're gonna get bombarded, especially after the predictions if things keep going the way they're going. But I don't get me wrong, Spence is definitely a top 10 at least pound for pound fighter, just through pure depth at 147 alone, which says a lot about what he's done at the weight. But like, Crawford's bang up there for me. Like, you've got to have, in my opinion, either Crawford, Usyk, or Inoue as your number one, and you can make a case for all three. So again, another video for another day, but I don't think there's much competition in it in terms of pound for pound for me.
No. And just to confirm, does anyone here not have Errol Spence in their top 10? No, everyone's going. Okay, no, that's fair enough. I think we're speaking on the same hymn sheet here. Elliot, Greg, what are your thoughts? Where's Terence Crawford on your pound for pound list, and where does he compare to Errol Spence?
Look, me and Greg and I have disagreed on this before, actually, and the reason, not because I see what the lads are saying, to be honest, and like you say, it's subjective, it's based on your own criteria. The reason I had actually Spence at one point above Crawford was simply for the fact that it was relative to the competition he was facing at the time. But you know, so that's similar with the Fury thing. Like, you look at it and go, can I really have Fury in a pound top 5 when he's fighting Derek Chisora? Probably not. So it's like, it's a difficult criteria. And you obviously have like you say, Inoue, Lopez now, whatever. So it's like, to be honest with you, like, I almost don't want to separate him. I can make an argument for both, but I'd have, if you're going to go overall, if you're going to really expand the range out and like say who's had a better career, who's probably there, then you would say Crawford. But if you're going to do it sort of year by year, like when people put like Lomachenko kind of high up there still, and you go, well, come on, like, you know, you've got to sort of move down a bit when you've lost a couple of times. But I'd probably, I can't really split it, mate, to be honest. I'd probably say Crawford, just so that Danny doesn't shout at me.
Yeah, okay. Fine. Okay, been great to discuss those points with you, gents. We are gonna move on to predictions here. Might be asking a question too about why your prediction is what it is. But very interested. Appreciate this is it's a big fight. It's a 50-50 fight. Predictions kind of change, but a couple of weeks out, I do want to know what your prediction is. Elliot, I'll let you start off this one. What is your official prediction a couple of weeks out for Errol Spence, Terence Crawford?
It breaks my heart to say this because I did always think that Spence would beat Crawford pre-car crash sort of Spence, but I think Crawford stops him, frankly. Now I've just got a feeling there's a lot of miles on that clock of Errol Spence, and I just think you look at, like I say, recent performances. Like, has Crawford really been pushed that recently? Not really. I think he comes into it actually quite fresh in comparison to Errol Spence. So I think he's going to stop him, yeah. And it breaks my heart.
And if this fight was happening 5 years ago, would you be going with Errol Spence instead?
I would, yeah. And me, Greg, and I, disagreed with this about 5 years ago, or at least 3 years ago. I would have gone with Errol Spence, yeah. But I just where it is now, I don't see him winning, unfortunately.
Yeah, and moving
Spence points. That would have been Spence points, obviously.
Yeah. And moving forward, Crawford, like, maybe at the tail end of his career now. Do you see him winning this fight and then moving up another weight, going up to 154? What do you see happening in the next couple of years if he is victorious?
I mean, it's chasing money fights, hasn't he? I suppose wherever that is. I mean, if he becomes obviously undisputed here, does he fight someone like Ennis? I don't know. Does he or does he move up? Maybe he does. But I think, like, to be honest, it's a case of where the money is as opposed to legacy. Like, your legacy is assured at that point. So biggest fight around those divisions, take it. Money fight. Like Greg said, he hasn't necessarily had a lot of those money fights in relation to, he obviously brings a lot of problems. And with the issues that he had, obviously with top ranking promotion. So yeah, I think wherever the money is, that's where it'll go. Whether it's up there or whether he stays where he is.
Yeah, have to see what happens. Greg, what's your prediction? Are you agreeing with Elliot Greig, going with Crawford, or are you going with Spence on this one?
Elliot, I'm not going to waste everybody's time. I really don't know at the moment. I really don't. I've got a bad feeling. Well, not a bad feeling, but I've got a feeling. People say when you get something in your gut, don't ignore it. And I get a feeling Spence might pip him in points, but I really don't know at the moment. I've always, like Elliot said, I've always stuck with Crawford. I think Crawford's the better fighter. But nothing bothers Spence. I think Crawford gets in a lot of these guys' heads, and sometimes they're beat before they go in. I don't think Errol Spence cares. And for that reason, and based on ability and everything, and I'm going to be honest, Elliot, I don't know at this stage, but my gut is giving me a sneaky feeling that Spence might just outpoint him.
Yeah, yes, it's interesting. I think that for what it's worth, I'm going with Crawford. I think Crawford will stop Spence. However, I don't know why, but it feels like a lot of people are writing Spence off in this fight, and I don't know why. But it's really, I don't know if it's maybe some people jumping on a bit of a bandwagon from what people kind of like in the industry are saying, but it does feel like it's this weird feeling that a lot of people aren't giving Spence much of a chance. And I don't understand why. Spence obviously undefeated, a fantastic fighter. Surely he's got a chance of beating Terence Crawford. So I do find in the build-up to this fight that a little bit strange. If I could just get you to elaborate on what you've said, what is it in your gut that how do you see Spence beating Crawford? How do you see that happening?
I've got to be honest, I'm listening to you two guys saying that you think he'll stop Spence, and I'm like, wow. I mean, everything's possible in boxing. He's ferocious, so it could happen, but it really shocks me. You guys seem like quite set on that, and I respect that a lot. I like guys that put their balls on the line instead of me. I just think that Spence is more clever than anyone that he's been in with. They're not going to fall into the same traps, the same habits. I think Spence is happy enough to frustrate Crawford and wait for his opportunities. You look at the way that he dealt with Kell Brook. That was almost a prime Kell Brook. I mean, yeah, of course we had the Golovkin thing, but I don't know, man. I just think that he's got really good boxing ability. I think he's patient. I don't think you go diving in and go looking for it the way that Porter did. I mean, even seen at times, Kell Brook done little things that bothered Crawford. Yes, Crawford obliterated him, and that's cool, but I just think he's patient and he's got really good boxing ability, and I think that he's got a daily determination that nothing really bothers him, and I think that's so important in boxing.
Intriguing. All right. Looking forward to July 29th, not long to go now. Danny, final prediction comes to you. Elliot Greig has gone with Crawford. Greg's going with Spence. I'm going with Crawford. Which way are you going?
I'm going with Crawford as well. I think he'll stop him. And it's funny you were saying, like, it sounds like a lot of people are writing Spence off. I'm going to sound like another one of them here. I think we've seen the best of him, to be honest. I think it's going to be well over a year since the UGAS fight. That's going to be, 15 months of inactivity. I got pelters on Twitter for saying this. UGAS could have stopped him that night. It was like the 6th or 7th round. He Spence's legs had gone, and UGAS stood off him for like 2 or 3 seconds. I think the ref called like a time for something, and his legs had completely gone. And I don't know how much of like the post-fight stuff or the pre-fight stuff you have been watching. Spence sounds like he's slurring his words. Does anyone else know? It sounds like punchy as fuck, and people are putting it down to like the teeth he got, like the car like crash, like the surgery after, which I don't see at all. And Crawford's just so spiteful, and for my money, like one of the best finishers in boxing. If it was prime for prime, I could see Spence maybe working him over late, like it was 2-3 years ago. But I think it could be a case of we see a pretty significant decline in Spence for this fight. Also, he's massive at the weight, and I think that could play a factor down the stretch because Crawford obviously seems to make 147 relatively comfortably. So I think Crawford will stop him second half of the fight.
Great, fantastic, gents. It's been great to break this down with all three of you. Can't wait for it. Should be a fight of the year contender. Been 7, 8, maybe 9 years in the making. But yeah, Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford will finally get it on July 29th. Greg, Danny and Elliot, thank you all very much for joining me.